What's up, y'all? So, in today's video, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is actually small talk and how to make it fun and enjoyable. Believe it or not, small talk, even if you find it exhausting, can actually be something you enjoy. And I used to be the same exact way. I used to hate small talk. I actually thought I was too intellectual and smart to enjoy it actually, which is kind of funny, to think about. It kind of shows how naive and overconfident I was in myself. So some of the things we're going to talk about are, what is small talk even? What are some strategies that you can use to make it more enjoyable and just how to have fun with it. So let's dive right in. So the first thing that we need to understand is, what is small talk? So the first aspect is understand that small talk helps, ease tension in new situations. And I know my circling there is terrible, but bear with me. There is no way, shape, or form that you can engage in a new interaction with someone without engaging in small talk. Even if you get off right on the bat of just asking the most insightful, deep question that you possibly can, the chances that that person receives it well is little to zero. The reason for that is because there just isn't any trust between the both of you for them to be able to even want to open up. So that's the first thing you need to understand. The second thing is that actually, believe it or not, deep connections aren't the only way to build rapport and create a sense of community and camaraderie. Starting with small talk in an interaction can actually help that person that you're talking to feel a little bit more comfortable to then, kind of set the scene for a deeper conversation. I think it's so important to understand that your displeasure with small talk isn't something that everyone necessarily feels. So if you come into a conversation without wanting to engage in it and make the other person feel like by them engaging in small talk with you that they're like bothering you, then you are already setting yourself up for them to not even want to engage with you. The third thing is small talk can be such a great opportunity creator. And so you might ask, why is that? The reason is because with the number of people that we interact with on a daily basis, we never know who could open up a door or who could actually help us with something that we're struggling with. By being comfortable engaging in small talk with other people, then we increase our luck surface area for the chances of some serendipitous moments to actually happen. So you kind of have an understanding now of what small talk is. So the next step is we really need to think about shifting our mindset about the topic in general. And the first thing to understand is if you don't like small talk, then look at these next three things that we're going to talk about to try and see the positive side of the act of it, and maybe it'll help change your mind. So the first one has to do with each interaction or conversation that you have with someone is always going to be a learning opportunity. And how lucky are you to not only have the chance to learn from someone, but you can also try and navigate conversations to learn something about the other person that is actually on a topic that you enjoy. So for example, if you are super hardcore and all about your goals, all about New Year resolutions, all about being better, then next time you have a small talk with someone, then try and navigate the conversation to learning what do they struggle with or what is a New Year's opportunity that they have. And now you can get inspired because you have the chance to learn a little bit about someone else and what they're trying to overcome or what they're trying to accomplish, which is really cool. The second one is you can have such a positive impact on someone struggling if you just give them the time of day. So my background is in street interviewing on TikTok. I've probably interviewed over 300 people, and you guys wouldn't believe how impactful it is to just hang on to a person's words and pay attention to them with your full 100% undivided attention. That is such a privilege and luxury that actually not that many people know, feel, or have ever felt, which is super sad. The third thing is we all have goals and things that we want to accomplish in life, and small talk can be an opportunity for you to take one step towards those things that you want to accomplish in this short life that we live. And it's very similar to what we were talking about earlier of everything being an opportunity in any conversation that you have. Okay, so now you're probably like, Timothy, we've talked about what small talk is, we've talked about how to shift our mindset about it, but what are some tactical strategies that we can actually use to engage with other people? That's what we're going to talk about on this slide. The first thing is ask open-ended questions to start, and then from there, you'll be able to navigate your way to understand, where you should push the conversation. And so if you are meeting someone for the first time and you ask them an open-ended question, for example, what was the highlight of your weekend? Then it gives that person the opportunity to dictate the direction of something that they want to bring up. And if they make that decision of something that they want to bring up, then that can be an opportunity for you to dive in something that they have possibly already shown interest in talking about since they brought it up. The second one is practice active listening. And I have a video that dives a little bit more into active listening coming up, so stay tuned for that. But some things to think about are, what is your body language when you're talking to someone else? Or how are you paraphrasing back to them what you heard so that they feel like you're actually listening? There are a bunch of pillars of active listening, but those are a few of them that you should think about. And the third one, which is my favorite, and it's my favorite because you can prepare these ahead of time and have them as something that you repeat in different conversations with people you don't know. And so you might be saying, Timothy, am I just going to reuse the same stories? Yes. Why not? I think it's such a good opportunity to have little interesting anecdotes ready for specific situations or specific types of conversations that most people you've told that anecdote to have responded pretty well or maybe even laughed. And for this one, make sure it's short, engaging, and a story that can possibly be relatable to what you and the other person are talking about in that moment. Next, there is something about being a human being where we are attracted to people that are similar to us. And so if we're attracted to people that are similar to us, then the goal is for anyone new that we meet, try and find common ground with them so that you can start to establish a little bit of that similarity effect. The three things that you can try to find common ground with them about are shared interests, similar experiences, and current events. Now, which one you use of these three depends on so many things. The context of the conversation you're talking about, the context of the environment that you're in, and what you already know about that other person. So for example, if you know that person is involved in politics, well, guess what? We are headed towards election season. So you can bring up a recent current event that you've been interested about and have been reading into, that with a pretty good chance that same person has heard about it or has already done their own research about it. For shared interests and similar experiences, for these, it can be as easy as, okay, you go to a yoga class, once every Wednesday. So because of that, then you already have the shared interest in common with someone else, and you already have the similar experience in common with someone else. And so you can use that to build off of the conversation and let it go naturally from there. Okay, now this one is probably the hardest, at least for me, which is incorporating, humor and lightheartedness into the conversations that you have with some people. I have found that when you take life too seriously, then not only does that rub people possibly in the opposite direction, but it also makes you a little bit cold and bitter to the world. And you might be saying, Timothy, but being super serious and not being lighthearted is just part of my personality, and it definitely might as well be. But laughing and humor is such a beautiful part about being a human being that we start to realize when we take things so seriously, we are losing out on such a core part of what it means to be a human being. And so when you're thinking about how to incorporate humor and curiosity, the three things that you can think about are appropriate humor. So appropriate humor is not necessarily something that is safe for work, but appropriate humor is something more along the lines of a well-timed joke in a specific scenario. Genuine curiosity. This one, what you can do is you can use genuine curiosity and try and ask questions that could possibly lead to something a little bit more humorous. So, for example, I remember when I was in college, I used to love asking people, what was your biggest L last year? And that just means, what was your biggest loss, or what was your biggest mistake? And L, for those that aren't familiar, is a slang more so in line with something more casual. So when I say, what is your biggest L, it translates to what is your biggest loss. But then if you don't know that L is a slang, then you're gonna think about like someone who passed away, and this is just gonna get super sad. So don't use that unless people understand the slang. That's just a quick side note. And also creative questions. This one can be actually really fun. My girlfriend loves asking these type of questions. For her, she'll ask things that put me in a hypothetical situation of two extremes that neither would ever happen, but it's fun to think about what you would do in that specific situation. So there are plenty of creative questions that you can ask. So think about that based off of your own interests. And then lastly, when we think about what are the challenges that I could encounter when it comes to actually enjoying small talk, some of the things that I think about are if you or the other person are shy, if there is some sort of awkward silence, if there's a person that is uninterested in the conversation and you're having to carry the entire load. In these situations, let's talk about shyness first. For shyness comes from a place of concerning yourself about how other people think of you. And fundamentally, that is an insecurity. If you can take small steps to address that insecurity, then that would be one step forward for you to start enjoying your social interactions without having to think, what is the other person thinking of me while I'm talking or while I'm standing or sitting in front of them. The second one has to do with awkward silences. Okay, so the thing with awkward silences is that there's a saying, it's only awkward if you make it awkward. So sometimes in a conversation, a long pause or a long silence can actually be really helpful to drive home the point of what you said, to give both parties some time to think about what was just said. The only times something is awkward is if you're nervously laughing like that, which was very embarrassing. But if you're like nervously laughing while a silence is occurring and it starts to make the other person feel a little bit uncomfortable. In those situations, you can always, prepare some general topics in your mind that can always be your go-to in situations where you feel like an awkward silence occurs, and then you have something to lean on so that you aren't panicking or nervously in that moment. And then the third thing is uninterested partners. This topic I am really passionate about. If you find that in your first, second, third attempt of trying to engage in small talk with people and they aren't interested, you have to drive a point home in your head that it is not because of you. Fundamentally, there are so many different reasons why a person could not be interested in talking in a given moment that for you to go immediately to the reason of I'm not good enough or they don't want to talk to me because of reason X, Y, and Z is so logically flawed that once you make that realization, it'll be easier for you to think about maybe that person just wasn't in the mood today, or maybe that person just wasn't interested in talking today. None of those things you should take personally, because the moment that you do have a meaningful and rewarding, conversation with someone, that should dispel all of those fears and insecurities that used to hold you back in the past from stopping to do it again. All that to say is small talk is a topic that I'm actually pretty passionate about, because as human beings, I fundamentally really do believe that we are creatures of community. And I think one of the worst things you can do is rob yourself from the opportunity to just have a lighthearted conversation with someone else. One of the stories that really stands out to me when I used to do a lot of street interviewing on TikTok was I interviewed this lady. She was maybe like 55 or 60. And I just talked to her about, I think the question was, what's something you're proud of that not many people know? From that question, she said she's proud of the fact that she actually got up out of bed that day to go to the park. And the park was where, we were talking and doing the interview. Something about that really hit, because it goes to show that famous and maybe overplayed out phrase, which is you never really know or understand what someone else is going through. By just giving her the opportunity to let her share that, you could already tell that she doesn't get the chance to be heard very often. And you also get to hear the struggle of someone else, which helps put all of your struggles in perspective. Because maybe for you listening or watching, going to the park, oh my gosh, that is you could do that every day of the week. But that same activity based on where someone else is in life can be difficult or a struggle. It really just adds a lot of perspective to your own life, but also the lives of the people around you that you don't even know are going through or experiencing any of these things. With that all being said, that is how you can start to make small talk a little bit enjoyable. I'm Timothy. I talk about communication and I make these videos once or twice a week. So please let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or if there's anything else you'd like to see or see me talk about. Thank you.